I think there will be a few more people joining shortly, but we'll get started. So lovely to see you all. I hope you're all doing well. Thank you very much for joining the first live lounge. Really, really exciting. Lovely to see so many people and young people as well interested in hearing more about what we have to offer here. So my name is Elliot D'Souza. I'm the founder of HealthKix. And we have partnered with UNIQ Snowsports, and it's a really exciting development for young people to have specialist support in key areas to improve health and performance, something that many people just don't have. And I'm delighted to have the opportunity to speak to you this evening. Just for your information, folks, we'll be recording this session today, so if you don't want to be on camera, absolutely fine. But I know there's a number of people that wanted to listen into this session today, but they were unable to join. So yes. If we can just keep on mute, folks, that would be fabulous. So just a brief background, folks. When I was younger, I wish I knew what I knew now. And I know that sounds really cliche, but the injuries I could have prevented and my performance journey could have just been so different. And if I did, I would have prioritized particular training routines, consume particular foods and drinks to ultimately promote further success in my lifestyle. So using my knowledge, skills from my undergraduate degree and my master's degree in exercise science and physiology, my work simply focuses on passing on this knowledge, passion, enthusiasm, and providing educational content to young people, but not just young people. It's parents. I know a number of families on this evening, and also coaches as well. So that's the purpose of these monthly sessions, another dynamic way to highlight that children and adolescents are not just mini adults. There are many similarities, but there are also many important differences. So if I am fortunate enough to meet some of you lovely people on camp, then of course you'll receive more information about this. And I love people that ask questions. But also I'll be providing online support. And also for those that want to see further success, there's the opportunity to provide bespoke programs for you as well. So let's get started, folks. I will be directing some questions today because I want to engage as many people as possible. And we're also going to do a short interactive quiz at the end just to aid some further understanding. So let's get started. So today we're going to look at 5 truths about carbohydrates. Okay, I'm sure there's a few things you may know about them, but hopefully you can learn just one thing today, then I'll be very happy. So the first thing we're going to talk about is current health recommendations. Number 2 is a really difficult one, this one, a practical guide to portion size, and I'll explain why it's so challenging shortly. Fueling exercise. So how can we aid performance and recovery? GI, well, firstly, what does GI even mean? Some of you may know, but also why is that important? And finally, quality of sugar, quality of carbohydrate, why does that make a difference? But before we get stuck into the session, folks, I just want to give you a very brief overview of macronutrients. And this is where I'm going to direct a question in a second. So macronutrients, they provide our body with energy in large amounts. Okay, and we need these 3 essential things. Okay, so I'm just going to ask if you folks can, we're going to start off nice and engaged at the moment. So can you all think of the 3 macronutrients, one beginning with C, one beginning with P, and then the other beginning with F? If you could all just use the chat box, I'd really appreciate if you could just type in there what you think they are. I'll give you a clue. The C is what we're talking about today, but the P and the F, any ideas? Okay, lovely. Got loads of responses here. Yeah, amazing. Okay, so we've got a few fibers. It's interesting. We will talk about fiber today, folks, but not a macronutrient. But yes, absolutely, got lots of responses here. So the first one is carbohydrates. I think everyone got that one. Protein and fat. So carbohydrates we'll talk about in a second, but protein is absolutely essential for growth and recovery for our muscles and muscle cells. And fat, that helps transport vitamins and minerals around the body and builds cells in our body and brain. So absolutely essential. These 3 things have one key thing in common, and that is to provide our body with energy. But of course, they have different roles, like I just mentioned. So interestingly, research suggests that children tend to use more fat as an energy source compared to adults, which reiterates my point previously about how young people are not just mini adults. So we will talk about this and macronutrients a little more in the future. But today, folks, we're going to look at carbohydrates. So what's the big deal? That's the first question I want to ask. Well, what is the big deal? And I like to use an analogy of petrol and fuel. So let's use a UNIQ Snowsports brand spanking new van. So this van is obviously going to transport athletes and equipment to different locations in and around UK and Europe, but it needs fuel in order to achieve this. So it provides energy for the van. But this also happens with us humans, as you can see here. So energy is broken down into glucose or sugar, okay, to make that even more simple. Not only do we need fuel to grow and mature, we need this for our daily activity. So this means that our muscles can use this energy so we can run, jump, slalom, and also learn effectively. So that is why carbohydrates is such a big deal. Now, let's go one step further. Now, I know there's a lot on screen here, so I'm just going to introduce you to the Eat Well guide, okay? But before I tell you what this is, I'm actually just going to ask someone. I'm going to put someone on the spot and just ask them what they can see. What's the first thing that they can see, or what do they think this represents? So, Dan, I'm actually going to pick on you, mate. I'm really sorry. It's been my own music. So, what do you see? Is there anything you see on screen that jumps out at you?
To be honest, what's jumping out at me right there is the green. I don't know if I'm linking that with the HealthKix, but I'm looking at all the veg right now.
Okay, nice. So fruit and vegetables you've spotted there, absolutely, and that is basically highlighting that we require a lot of what's recommended to consume a lot of fruit and vegetables. So thanks very much for that, mate. That's great. And again, apologies for putting on the spot. So yes, absolutely. So folks, the Eat Well guide simply represents what a typical person would consume in a whole day. Okay. And it's representing balance and variety of different food groups. So I must point out that this does look like a plate. And it actually, a few years ago, it had a knife and fork on it. So it really did look like a plate, but they've since changed that. So this is what, and again, this is for an average adult. However, research suggests that this can still apply for young people, specifically teenagers as well, in terms of the food groups you can see on screen. I just want to highlight that the three main macronutrients that you folks just highlighted will be incorporated within these different food groups. So for example, Dan's just mentioned the fruit and vegetables. So bananas, for example, yes, they're a fruit, but they would come under carbohydrates in terms of macronutrients, okay? Also, for example, milk would come under fat as a macronutrient, okay? So one thing I want to encourage you folks to do is, after today's session, write down what you consume across a full day and compare this with the Eat Well guide. So I'd like to ask you, do you find anything interesting about your daily intake compared to the Eat Well guide? But today, folks, we're going to pay particular attention to carbohydrates. You can see here, this is starchy carbohydrates, but we're actually going to go one step further today and look at carbohydrates as a whole as well. So current health recommendations. A big question is how much. Now, the first thing I want to highlight is for starchy carbohydrates, ideally we want to be aiming for about 3 to 4 portions of starchy foods per day. Now, this can be bread, pasta, potatoes, rice, for example. Again, well, what is a portion? We're going to get to that in just a second. But it's also important to note that carbohydrates are also found in natural and refined sugars as well. So Ash, I'm putting you on the spot here, mate. I'm sorry. By the way, folks, Dan and Ash don't know I'm doing this. I'm actually just putting on the spot. Ash, do you have any idea? Can you think of a natural sugar example? Think health. Think health.
Like fruit.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect example. So fruit would be more of your natural sugars, and milk is a good example of that as well. So cheers for Ash. And refined sugars. So refined sugars, any ideas, Ash? Like more common things we'd see as treats. Any ideas?
Chocolate, Easter eggs coming up.
Exactly, yeah. So chocolate being a perfect example as well. So the more processed kind of foods as well. So carbohydrates are found in these as well. So Ash, cheers, mate. I appreciate that. So yes, these are kind of all the different types of carbohydrates that are included. Carbohydrates in terms of our intake should form about 50 to 60% of that in terms of macronutrients, which is basically meaning that the remaining 50 or 40% should be from protein and fats. Okay, again, highlighting the importance of carbohydrates, but ideally starchy carbohydrates should form the majority of these. But again, how can we simplify this? How does this look? So let's work this on. So like I said before, portion size for many people, and young people in particular, has been a real challenge for scientists and practitioners to analyze and prescribe for different people, simply because everybody's so different. So influencing factors include things on screen here. So age, body size, pubertal status as well. Everybody's at different stages there, and also activity levels. But a practical and visual way to understand portion as a general guide is to use the portion plate. So think of this as an actual plate. Okay, so as you can see here, starchy food should form a quarter of your plate, protein should form the other quarter, and fruit and vegetables should form half of your plate. You can also use, as you can see, that's a starchy representation. You can also use this plate with things like sandwiches, understanding whether you have the right balance as well. But what I want to go into a little bit more, which may interest you all, is how does exercise affect this? Now, notice how starchy foods have increased here. So on those days where you are more active, it is recommended to then increase our intake so we can replenish the energy we've lost. So grain-based food, fruits, vegetables, they provide adequate amounts of carbohydrates to be used as fuel for exercise. Right, but what's really important now, folks, and again, this is just going one step further in terms of fueling your body, is refueling after exercise and not waiting 2 hours. So again, going back to when I was younger, I didn't know about this kind of window, which we like to call is the 30 to 45 minute window to support recovery after exercise. Okay, so ideally in the next 24 to 48 hours, you'll also support recovery as well, which will in turn improve your performance. One thing I want to mention as well is if you can't consume a meal, and I'm not saying replace a meal with this, but research does suggest that a good old-fashioned glass of milk can be very beneficial to support with repairing muscle and providing energy. Something I do want to discuss in the future, and the reason why I want to do that is because a lot of athletes and a lot of people have spoken to me and asked this question, is exploring the use of energy drinks and supplements as well, and whether these are beneficial, especially for young people. So I know that's a really common question that's asked. So I promise we'll get to that at some point in the near future. Right, but I want to go again, make this even more visual for you. And this is something I like to call jazz hands. Okay, this is a really effective tool for young people and families to use to understand a general guide for portion for them. And it's even more visual. So if you can see on screen here, and you can do this yourself, just putting your hands together like so. This simply represents a quarter being a palm, the other quarter being the other palm, and your fingers being half of your plate. Okay. I just want to give you a very silly example. So my spaghetti bolognese the other night, folks, I promise you this did not look like this. I probably had spaghetti covering all of my hands, bolognese stuffed on top with a few peas mixed in the middle. So I know I didn't follow the right portion size for me, in which case I may not have used that energy effectively and may have stored some of it as fat, which may not have been beneficial for my health, but also performance, especially if I do it consistently. So that's kind of how much, folks. And again, happy to answer questions at the end if you want to understand a little more there. But yes, how much is very important. But what also is very important is the quality of carbohydrate. So some of you may have heard of fiber, and I know a few of you mentioned fiber in the chat before. So another word for it is roughage. It comes not only from whole grains or unpeeled starchy foods, things like rice or skin on potatoes, but it's also found in fruit, vegetables, nuts, seeds, lentils and beans and things like that. There's so many benefits of fiber. One, it keeps your gut healthy. So if you can think, if your gut is healthier, it's going to utilize those nutrients more effectively. It's also going to help control blood sugar levels and help you feel fuller for longer. Now, I like to give a very simple analogy as to the reason why. So think of fiber like a gel that surrounds the food or the carbohydrate. Your body therefore has to digest that first before the carbohydrate, and therefore it takes longer to break down and therefore longer for us to use that energy. So let's explore this a little more. And again, I may put someone on the spot here, somebody that perhaps has spoken in the group chat, because I can't see many of you. So you can see here, this is GI, and this stands for glycemic index. Now I'm just going to show you, you can see the axis here, you've got blood sugar levels on the left and time on the bottom. So I just want to talk about high GI versus low GI foods. So high GI foods, things like cereal bars, sweets, white bread, energy drinks, mashed potato. And low GI being wholemeal pasta, lentils, vegetables, whole grain bread, and porridge, for example. I want to ask folks, what do we think is happening here? So you can see you've got the red line being high GI and the blue line being low GI. Now, again, I am just going to put somebody on the spot, and feel free to say you don't want to say anything, but hopefully you're okay to speak. Let's go to, is it Petra? Petra, if you don't, or Petra, if you don't mind unmuting. Can you just highlight what do you think is happening with the red line versus the blue line? Would you mind sharing? Is that okay? Petra, are you there? Otherwise, I'll go on to somebody else. Oh, he's typed. Sorry, I didn't see that. So the high GI foods will give you more energy sooner. Yes, love it. Really, really interesting. Zoe's also said bad sugar doesn't last as long. Good sugar lasts longer after your sugar rush. Okay, so brilliant. Thank you very much for both Zoe and Lily and Petra. Yes, so again, really, really good point. So GI simply stands for, what that is the rate at which the sugar from the food is released into the bloodstream and therefore providing us with energy. Okay, so if you can see, you've got the high GI versus the low GI. The high GI simply provides a higher spike in energy, so it's going to rush into our bloodstream, which is what both Zoe, Lily, and Petra just highlighted. But also there's going to be a faster decline in blood sugar. So high amounts of glucose potentially being stored as fat if they're not used for energy. And also it won't leave you feeling very full up. So how about low GI? Well, you can see here that it's released slowly into the bloodstream and providing longer lasting energy. If you can see, it ends up higher than the high GI towards the end. So low GI foods, especially if they are more organic and whole natural foods, they will have typically more fiber in, which of course has added benefits like we just discussed. But low GI foods provide satiety. So in other words, they help you feel fuller for longer. But again, I just want to go one step further because this may benefit some young people that are listening in. In summary, you could say, and again, research suggests this, that low GI foods could be a great source of energy before exercise or before training, perhaps 2 to 4 hours before. Whereas the high GI foods that are going to rush into your bloodstream a little bit quicker, they are perhaps beneficial for during exercise if it's nice and intense or for a long period of time, or perhaps immediately after in that 30 to 45 minute window. Okay, so think of GI like a very big funnel versus a really small funnel. The big funnel, put a bag of sugar in it, it's going to rush into our bloodstream very, very quickly, which is the high GI. A small narrow funnel, pour a bag of sugar in, it's going to trickle through and our body's going to be able to deal with that little bit easier. So again, please consider that pre-exercise and post-exercise. Right, again, thank you very much to those that had their input there. That's fabulous. Right, another thing we're going to talk about is quality of sugar, quality of carbohydrate. Now, processed foods and food containing added sugar or free sugars don't particularly provide much benefit for our body other than added energy. So think of 100 calories of broccoli versus 100 calories of sugar, the sugar is simply going to provide you with energy and nothing else. The broccoli will provide you with the same amounts of energy, 100 calories, but also vitamins, minerals, fiber, etc. So lots more benefits. You can also see here a general can of soft drink, and again, diet and Coke Zero and things like that. We'll get to sweeteners because yes, there are benefits, but there are also some negative effects. A general can of soft drink can contain more than the recommended maximum of added sugar per day, which is quite scary. So again, consider those factors too. But what we're going to do now, folks, because I want to make sure we're all engaged and you have some input too, we'll do a bit of an activity. And this is very, very simple, but I really need you all to jump in the group chat for this one. So what we're going to do is simply have you folks guess how many teaspoons of sugar are in each item. So it could be added sugar, free sugars, but how many teaspoons of sugar do you think are in each item? Now, please just write these in the chat box of how many teaspoons you think are in each item. If you guess correctly or you are within half a teaspoon, then you get 1 point. Okay, I have a feeling there's going to be some competitive people in this call, which is great because I am too. It's highly unlikely we'll need a tiebreaker, but the final item will decide who wins. Okay, so this is going to be a quick fire round, ladies and gents. So 20 seconds, just have a think. How many teaspoons of sugar do you think in each one? And we'll go from there. So you'll get it pretty quickly. So first one, 20 seconds, a 200 milliliter glass. Now this is a small glass. A 300 milliliter glass is a standard glass of Rubicon mango juice drink. And this is now half the sugar. So again, reduced sugar. So what do we reckon? Okay, lots of input very, very quickly. We've got 3, 5, 6, 4, 2, 5, 3, 12, 10. Okay, interesting. 5, 2. Right, first one, folks, 2.5. Okay, so some were bang on, some were close. So 2.5 teaspoons in the mango juice drink. So hopefully you get the idea by now, which is great. So the next one, I love the input so far. So this is a Eat Natural bar. I'm sure you've all had this before. It does taste great, I must be honest. 50 grams, so a small bar, almond and apricot with a yogurt coating. Now I just want to emphasize it's an Eat Natural bar, apparently. What do you reckon? Okay, interesting. Lots of responses. 6, 1.5, 1, 30, 4, 5, 4, 2, 4, 7, 3. Okay. Some of us are very close with this one. It's 3 3/4. So if you got within half a teaspoon of that, folks, you get yourself a point. Love it. Okay. The next one, I'm a big fan of. I don't know if any of you guys are, but Oliver, I love the 31.2. That's brilliant. Yeah, cream egg. This is a 40-gram cream egg. Now, if anybody is aware, they're very small. Okay, so how many teaspoons? What do you reckon? They're very, very small. 12, 8, 5, 12, 6, 4.5. Okay. Interesting responses. Right. The answer, folks, is 6. Now, I just want to highlight that with the cream egg, the majority of this, or in fact, all of it, is going to be added sugar. Okay. And 6 teaspoons is around the recommended maximum, which is about 30 grams. So, and if you're somebody like me that doesn't just have one cream egg, you might have 2 or 3. You're having perhaps 12 to 18 teaspoons of sugar. So again, please do think about that. Next one, 500-gram jar of Dolmio bolognese sauce. And by the way, folks, these might not just go up in teaspoons. It might go down. I might put you on the spot. Dolmio sauce, what do you reckon? Dolmio sauce. I'm sure we've all had this before. It does taste nice. Okay, I think we've got 6, 8, 4, 5, 12, 4, 7. Love the input, by the way. This is great. Love it. 10, 7, 4, 10, 4. Okay, interesting. This one, folks, is 7 teaspoons. Again, with Dolmio sauce, it's not just the added sugar, but it's also how it's cooked, how it's prepared, when there are lots of other healthier alternatives out there as well. Okay, last one. So Uncle Ben's sweet and sour sauce. Now, just note that this is a smaller jar. And again, we're probably not going to have a whole jar to ourselves, but 450 grams. The same with Dolmio sauce was 500 grams. This is the last one. So what do you reckon? Uncle Ben's sweet and sour sauce. Okay. Oh, wow. 8, 9, 10. Interesting. 14, 8.5, 7. 15, 8, 9. Interesting. Okay, folks. The answer is 15. 15 teaspoons of sugar in this lovely jar. Now, I must admit it does taste good, but again, can you have a consider how we get on? Yeah, Dan got that bang on, and he hasn't seen this before, so well done. Love it. So I just want to ask, what surprised you the most? Ash, just because I can see you there, what surprised you out of all those?
That last one actually surprised me.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm not on all of that sort of stuff. So
No.
I was just quite wild.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And Gillian, I'll ask you as well. Was that the same? Were you surprised by that one, or was there another surprise?
Well, I was surprised that Daniel actually got 15 because I wrote 14.
Well,
it's just quite high, these prepared jars. You're much better off making your own.
Absolutely, yeah. But very good guess anyway. So thanks very much. Lovely. Right, folks. So I just want to highlight. So thanks very much for joining me in that little quiz. I hope it was kind of a bit of an eye opener for you. So I just want to highlight that marketing nowadays is so clever, and it can influence what we purchase. And so really do think about convenience versus better health choices and the health in the long run. What I want to highlight as well is that it's so common to eliminate and restrict yourself at some point in your life. And it's key, particularly as a young person, to be aware of the health benefits of moderation rather than elimination. Okay. So it's therefore recommended, and I do recommend, to consume natural whole foods, of course. But I tend to recommend an 80-20 split. So 80% of the time, choose those healthier options, and 20% of the time, can you allow flexibility and moderation of those treats to find a nice balance? Because you do not need to be perfect. As a young person, as an adult, as a parent, you do not have to be. So finally, folks, I'm just going to give you some 5 take-home messages. First one is, we need carbohydrates for energy, like petrol, like cars do with petrol. Okay. Carbohydrates, they include starchy foods, but they also include natural and refined sugars as well. Portions. So remember, the jazz hands, a really, really simple way of understanding portion size, but it can vary on many influencing factors. So things like age, body size, pubertal status, activity levels. Glycemic index tells us how quickly we receive the sugar. Looking at pre versus during and post exercise is something we spoke about as well. And considering how nutrient timing can benefit our performance and recovery. And finally, just being aware, like Gillian just said, of processed foods, but also foods just containing added sugar and free sugars. Really, really important to see if we can make more informed choices about our health and therefore performance. Right, folks, that's what I've got for you. I must say, I wouldn't be an exercise science graduate or a master's student if I didn't provide you with further reading or evidence to back up my claims. So you can see those on screen. So you'll find some links and also scientific journals here. A bit of a science geek. Love it. So do get in contact if you'd like to receive these further resources. I'm more than happy to send them out to you. Okay. Now, just one final thing. I hope you enjoyed today. Firstly, I've really enjoyed myself and delivering to you. Just a couple of things before we conclude the session, before you leave. Both myself and Dan, Ash, UNIQ Snowsports, we really do truly value your feedback. So we'll be sending out. You should be receiving this in the next minute or two. It's simply a 2-minute feedback form, which we greatly appreciate you completing, and ultimately, so I can continue to provide beneficial content for you. And I just want to highlight that research suggests only 10% of you will complete that. So I just want to really ask you if we can boost that statistic, please. That would be great. So if you do have any questions or feedback, you can contact me in many, many ways. So you can contact me via email. You can also reach out to me on social media, Instagram, Facebook. Also, feel free to visit the HealthKix website. And just in case any of you forgot, folks, this was me, Elliot D'Souza. So really, really excited to, with this kind of unique opportunity, pardon the pun, And delighted we're fortunate enough to share this all with you. Like I said, it's something that many people, especially young people, don't have access to. So I'm delighted to be able to share that with you. I hope you enjoyed today. And like I said, if you gained one thing from today, then I will sleep well tonight. So I really do look forward to seeing you again in the next live lounge. That will be at the end of April, and we'll get that sent out to you very, very soon. So thanks very much, folks. If anybody has any questions, we've got about 5 minutes, so feel free to fire away. But if not, thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.
We've had a question in the group chat, actually.
Oh, let me just see it, 2 secs. Oh, great question. If you don't plan to exercise further that day, is the 30 to 45 minute recovery window still relevant? No, ultimately, no, not really. That's with regards to the window, it's more based on those days where you are active. Ideally, if we can be active, then great. Most days or every day, then great. Yeah, really great question. It's more for those days where you're refueling and recovering from that activity. Yeah, to basically support your muscles with repairing themselves. Yeah, great question. Did someone just raise their hand? Did I see that? Was it Zoe and Lily, or did they? I'm not sure. Not sure. Any other questions, folks? If not, you're absolutely free to go. Oh, there is a question. Lily would like to know if she can have a bigger portion than her tiny hands. Yeah, so I always make this joke. So that's a really good question. So I always make this joke that obviously if you've got bigger hands, then lucky you. If you've got small hands, then you're lost. No, of course, with regards to the jazz hands, it's obviously a great tool to use for young people and families to kind of understand. But of course, yeah, if you've got tiny hands, perhaps just increase it a little bit more and just see how you feel. Absolutely. Yeah, lovely. Great question, though, Zoe and Lily. Thank you very much, Lily. Appreciate it. Julian, with the jazz hands and eating spaghetti bolognese, which part is pasta and which is the sauce? So I hope, but the again, depends what sauce you're using, Julian. Hopefully not Dolmio sauce. But again, ideally pasta covering one palm, and put some sauce over the top again. I guess that would mix with bolognese. So yeah, if you can have a quarter being the pasta, a quarter being the bolognese, and then get your fruit and veg on there, or veg, I should say. Yeah, homemade sauce, absolutely. Couldn't believe 15 teaspoons sweet. Yeah, absolutely. So what should we give children between school and an activity? And then what should we give them afterwards for recovery? Again, really good question, Melanie. It's difficult to say in terms of what we should kind of provide. Ultimately, if you can provide something that's not processed, again, fruit is a great thing. If it's something like a snack, milk and fruit, they're great examples, or nuts, raw unsalted nuts, because they're healthy fats. Those kind of things would be recommended. But if it's a meal, again, it's kind of up to you. You can, any starchy carbohydrate we've discussed before. Yeah, and just kind of having a nice balance. So again, using the Eat Well guide to find those different food groups and including them, it would be ideal, and using the portion plate. Julian says apple slices dipped in peanut butter. That is a great shout. Absolutely love that. Yeah, apple slices with peanut butter is great. Again, just being mindful of what peanut butter, and there's some things that are better than others. But yeah, ultimately, that's not a bad snack. Absolutely. Just be mindful. We've only got about 2 minutes, folks, so we're gonna have to maybe answer 1 or 2 more questions. Professor says, do you have any recommendations for kids' snacks during training? Well, this is something that we probably will talk about soon. It depends on how active they are, the intensity of their training, the duration, how long they're training for. It's more about so for example, having about 1 gram of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight. So for example, if you're 40 kilos, you'd have about 40 grams of carbohydrates in that 1 meal. Research does suggest that having a nice ratio of 3 grams of carbohydrate to 1 gram of protein, is really, really good idea. And chocolate milk is a perfect example of that. But again, we will get to that in another live lounge, because I think it's a really important question in terms of snacks and supplements and things like that, whether they're beneficial. But great question. Right, folks, we're going to have to end it there. Any other questions, please do give me a shout, email, or anything you can see on screen. But thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll speak to you very, very soon. So you take care. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.